away from sports cards for a little bit. We're going to talk some sports. Again, my format's going to be a little bit different tonight because I'm not using my normal stuff. So I have no graphics. I have nothing saved. I'm using my wife's computer tonight. So bear with me on tonight. We're still going to have fun ripping boxes and stuff. I still have my camera. I still have, well, I don't have my computer. I still have my encoding software, which I know how to operate. I still have my screen right there that I can, well, right there, kind of. Um, I have my tablet. I have my phone. So I have pretty much everything, just don't have my computer that has all my stuff saved to it. So, without further ado, let's get chatting on some sports. We're going to talk about last night's game and the absolute train wreck that happened on the field and on the sidelines. And I don't want to say this in any kind of condescending nature, but we're going to call this the Eagles losing to the Hawks, not necessarily the Hawks beating the Eagles. And it's not that the Hawks played bad. The Hawks defense is bad. We all know it. I mean, except for a couple of key guys. Jamal Adams is a fucking beast. But last night, Monday Night Football, Seattle travels to Philly. Philly essentially got hammered, even though they only lost 23-17, which sports bettors hated this because the spread was 6.5. And for some reason, Doug Peterson decides to go for 2 instead of going for 1 with the extra point on the touchdown with 14 seconds left in the game, and went for 2, which made no difference on winning or losing the game. It was a head scratcher. But anyway, Seattle couldn't cover the spread. Pissed off a lot of bettors. Listened to a lot of guys on the Pat McAfee show this morning venting. Big time. Because they couldn't cover the spread. There was a guy that bet like $50,000 or $500,000 on Seattle to cover the spread, and they couldn't by a half point. That's part of the reason. Like for me, I don't bet. I don't sports bet. I don't. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't bet spreads. I suck at that kind of stuff. I'm horrible at the spread. I'm a W and an L guy. You give me wins and losses, now we're talking. I'm not a spread guy. Doesn't work for me. I'm horrible at it. Like, I think the last time I tried to bet spreads, I went like 0 for 40 something in a row. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Do not take betting spread advice from me. Cover that now. Okay? If we're ever sitting down talking spreads, disregard everything I say. Okay, so the good that came out of last night. The good. Number one, Russell Wilson threw no interceptions. That's good. He's been shaky the last 4 or 5-ish weeks. There's been a few turnovers, obviously more than typical Russell Wilson. He seemed more energetic. He seemed more back into being let Russ cook mode, and more, especially after the game, seemed more jazzed, which is good, because that's the Russell Wilson we all love to see, and that's the Russell Wilson that's great for the NFL product. It truly is. DK Metcalf had a career night in terms of receiving yards. 10 catches for 177 yards, which then puts him in first place overall for receiving yards on the season after Tyreek Hill had his monster day on Sunday, which, wow, 200 plus receiving yards in the first quarter. Everybody was, on board with him potentially surpassing the single game record. But at some point, they're not going to continue just. Well, I guess they probably could have exploited Tyreek's speed more, but they didn't. And Tyreek finished with like 260. I say this like it's no big deal. It's like, it's 260 yards. No, I mean, he monster game. But sorry, back to DK. Fantastic night for DK Metcalf, and there was the talk of before the game, Jim Schwartz had gone up to DK and was complimenting DK and saying how he reminded him of Megatron, Calvin Johnson. And Jim Schwartz happened to say, "Oh, I spent some time in Detroit, obviously, and I know Megatron quite well." And no slap in the face intended, but he said, "You're on your way. You're not quite there yet, but you're on your way." And so somebody was talking about that after the game, and one of the reporters, and so DK found the tweet on Twitter and put the Michael Jordan picture where he said, where he goes, "And I took that personally." And there you have a 10-catch, 177-yard game out of DK Metcalf because he felt slighted by Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, and ran with it, essentially. I thought it was hilarious, and I get a kick out of DK Metcalf. I think the guy is an absolute freaking beast, and to watch him go off the way he did last night was fun to see. But I was just like, and I took that personally. That was good. Oh man. So one of the other good things about last night, the return of Chris Carson. Yay, Chris Carson. Great to see him back. Great to see him healthy, and much needed on that Seahawks team because Russell Wilson can't do everything. Well, I mean, he can, but he shouldn't have to. He really shouldn't have to. But anyway, Chris Carson came back last night, 5.1 yard average, which was good for the team, especially with Russell Wilson only having, 12 rushing yards last night, 6 carries for 12 rushing yards, something like it was like 2-yard average, which is very un-Russell-like. But he also was harassed most of the night. He only took 2 sacks last night, but he was harassed a lot last night, and he barely was getting away, and so that's what affected his yards per rush, was because he was in the process of getting drugged down behind the line of scrimmage and made his way past the line of scrimmage a number of times, barely. So definitely Chris Carson being back was big for the Seahawks last night. I absolutely believe he had put up a touchdown last night too. That's always a good thing for the Seahawks. So their team is starting, their offense is starting to get back to being complete again, and I think that should help Russell Wilson as well. Now, one of the things that I will say was good for the Seahawks, but not really so good for the Eagles, was that historic bad defense that the Seahawks have put on the field for the last, all season. The Eagles couldn't do much against it. I mean, 17 points is 17 points, but they struggled. Now, a lot of that had to do with some drop passes, and I'll get into that here shortly, but some of the bad things that happened, obviously, last night, Carson Wentz got sacked 6 times last night, compared to Russell Wilson only getting sacked 2, and they're both in the top 5 for most sacked quarterbacks this season. A couple of them came off of safety blitzes. Jamal Adams came in, and I said Jamal Adams is a freaking beast. And when you catch Carson Wentz on the backside, because they were backside safety blitzes, he can't see him coming. He had no back in formation to catch that, so he just got taken down from behind while he was trying to get away. It happens. That's a tough one to plan for, especially when Jamal Adams comes up and looks like he's coming into bump and run coverage, and they pass off to the corner or to the other safety, and then he blitzes. So, great disguise. But the Eagles struggled. Now, one positive for the Eagles was they only had 1 turnover all game. which is good for them because they have been a turnover machine this year, whether it be fumbles, whether it be interceptions. So only one turnover by the Eagles was good for them. The Seahawks, no turnovers last night, no interceptions by Russell Wilson, which I mentioned that before. That's very good. That's the Russell Wilson you want to see. No fumbles by the running backs, no interceptions by the quarterback. Usually going to lead to a W. Negative for the Eagles was the amount of drop passes. The opening drive, this set the tone for the game, in my opinion. Opening drive. First pass of the game. First play of the game. Carson Wentz dropped back to pass. Hits his receiver in his hands. Drops the pass. Okay? It's not going to go well. Second pass. Misses his tight end by 6-7 feet in front of him. Not a good pass. Third pass. Hits the receiver as the receiver's going to the ground to make a diving catch, which I wouldn't even say diving catch, more of a falling catch, but it hit him right in the hands. Could have been a first down. Couldn't catch it. And it was 3rd and 5 because there was an offside penalty on the defense, so they only had to gain 5 yards, and the receiver dropped the ball again. So just in the first drive alone, no yards positive for the team, even though they got 5 penalty yards from the offside. No positive actual offense yards. 3 incomplete passes. 2 of them drops. That's a horrible way to start a game. When you're playing a team especially that has a known bad defense, and they are one of the worst against the pass in the NFL, you can't have opening drives like that. That does not work. So yeah, two in the opening drive is bad. One of the things that, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit, everybody's been screaming for Jalen Hurts because of Carson Wentz's play. Jalen Hurts coming in for the, well, technically, I guess 3 plays because one of them was a penalty. But for the 2 actual plays that he did, made no sense to me. He came in, handed the ball off to his running back. Next play was a penalty. Next play was a completed pass for 6 yards. In comes Carson Wentz on 3rd down. Gets sacked. 4th down punt. There's a part of me that I just cannot understand Doug Peterson. And I cannot understand what is going on in his mind. And to be quite honest, it's starting to drive me crazy. A lot of you guys know I'm an NDSU guy. Went to NDSU. I'm a big Carson Wentz supporter. I think Carson Wentz is fantastic. I think he's an incredible human being, and I think he's a very, very, very talented football player. He's got all the talent in the world to be an MVP. He's got all the talent in the world to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. What Doug Peterson has done with that team in the last 2 years, since, well, actually, you know what? Let's say since they went to the Super Bowl, it has left me head scratching, and I really hate to see such a talented quarterback get mismanaged by such a horrible game manager, a horrible play caller, and a guy who can't seem to get his team prepared for games. He can't get his wide receivers to work with his quarterback. The quarterback has to rely on the tight ends, and when you focus the game in one direction like that, it's not going to end well. And so I don't want to say that Carson Wentz is not at fault at all, but it starts at the top. It starts with the GM. It starts with the pieces that were put around him. Somebody said it today on, I think it was on Get Up on ESPN. No, it was on, no, not Get Up, the program that's on after that. I don't remember what it's called. The Eagles have the 2nd highest payroll for the players in the NFL this year. Now, there's tons of injuries. Don't get me wrong. They're injured beyond injured beyond injured. I mean, if you saw the graphic last night on the game, the offensive line alone has been destroyed. His weapons. Alshon Jeffrey has not played consistently and been hurt. Deshaun Jackson was hurt, and you saw the half of a quarter when Deshaun Jackson came back. He was a game changer for that team, and you can tell that Carson Wentz and he have very good rapport. But outside of everybody else, you have undrafted free agents. You have late round guys who haven't fulfilled any talent level expectation. They haven't surpassed their 6th round draft pedigree. So, at some point, Howie Roseman has to be held accountable, the GM. Jeffrey Lurie has got to be just fuming over this. And Doug Peterson, rightfully so, also probably, a lot to blame as well, because he's not using the pieces that he's got. He's not scheming for the pieces he's got. He's got to be going into games and preparing for not having a world-class wide receiver, for not having an incredible offensive line. He needs to be able to take the offensive game plan and change it. Now, they've done a very good job of building a great defense, because that defense is very good. But their wide receiver talent evaluation has been horrible. When you look at J.J. Arcega-Whiteside drafted last year, and you look at who's all been drafted, or who was all drafted after him last year, namely DK Metcalf. How do you draft J.J. Arcega-Whiteside with DK Metcalf sitting on the board? How do you draft Jalen Reagor with Justin Jefferson on the board, with Chase Claypool on the board? Give me a freaking break. Are you that bad at talent evaluation that you don't know what's going on? DK Metcalf is the fastest wide receiver, the fastest player to run a 40 at a combine that's above 225 pounds. Oh, but Jalen Reagor, he can take the top off of a defense because of his speed. I bet you line those two up, they're neck and neck at best. At worst, I think DK's got him as far as overall speed. So, how bad is Howie Roseman at evaluating wide receiver talent? That's got to come into play here. Back to last night's game, Wentz ran the ball for almost 3 times the production that their next closest runner did. He put up 42 rushing yards. The next closest runner had 15. That was Miles Sanders. 15 rushing yards for their starting running back. 42 yards for their quarterback. There's a problem. 100% there's a problem. Back to Doug P. The guy's lost. In play calling, he's lost. He's unimaginative. He's uncreative. He said it today that he takes pride in his play calling. When you're putting a product like that on the field, and you're saying you take pride in putting that product on the field, I'd be like, nah, he called the plays. I don't know what you're talking about. Nope, sorry. No, he's horrible at it. He's so unimaginative. It's ridiculous. Going for it on 4th and 4, deep in the Seahawks territory, when you literally were down 11, to kick a field goal puts you down 1 score. It would have been a 1-score game. Kick the field goal. 4th and 4. They were on like the Seahawks 22-yard line. Kick the damn field goal. Go down to 8. You're 1 score away. What was the next touchdown you guys had? An 8-point touchdown. It could have been done. He's just blows my mind. Point being behind all this, Wentz needs better. Wentz can also be better. And I think under the right tutelage, under the right coaching, under the right GM, I think it's possible. I 100% think it's possible. I don't think Doug P is the right fit for that offense. I don't think he's the right fit for that team. I also don't think that Jalen Hurts being drafted in the 2nd round was a smart plan. Because when you look at who they could have gotten in the 2nd round, they could have gotten an offensive lineman. The draft was deep with offensive linemen. They could have gotten a wide receiver. This was the deepest wide receiver draft we've seen in a decade. Could have gotten a running back. All 3 of those positions were a position of need last year. because of injury. So why not build depth at least? Instead, you go get a quarterback because, well, if Wentz gets hurt, we need a quarterback. Well, shit. You already got McCown as a backup quarterback. He would have signed on for another year. He's still on the team as more of a mentor. You didn't need to draft Jalen Hurts. It was a stupid draft decision. He's a good kid. He's a good quarterback. But there's no intention of going over to Jalen Hurts from Carson Wentz right now. So all you did by drafting Jalen Hurts was send the message to Carson Wentz, watch your back. Watch your back, because this kid could take your spot. Even though we just paid you an assload of money and you're a very high-priced quarterback, we might hand your spot over. Well, Carson Wentz is still only 28 years old. He's still young. And he's already got to deal with a team and a city that thinks Nick Foles should have been kept because Nick Foles won the Super Bowl, and Nick Foles was the Super Bowl MVP, and there's a goddamn statue of Nick Foles in front of the stadium. So you have a guy whose confidence is already shaken. And instead of supporting him, you bring in Jalen Hurts. Might be the dumbest GM move that I've seen. And I've seen some dumb GM moves. All right, go over some of the comments here real quick. Yes, DK is an animal. Oh, man. Mr. Myers, first time here, welcome. Yeah, anybody first-timers here, then welcome, and thank you for joining me. Yep, David Millers. DK said that 25% of the days, 25% of his days are spent thinking about the teams who passed on him, and that's a good, that's not a bad thing. Put a chip on your shoulder, absolutely. Whatever you need to do to be successful. Do you need it to eat at you? No, it doesn't have to eat at you. But when you want to stick it to people, especially if you were a second-round pick, and I know Aaron Rodgers likes to do the whole, I'm going to stick it to the 23 teams that passed on me. Well, let's really face it here. How many of those teams, there was only about 3 of them that needed a quarterback at the time, so you stick it to those 3 teams. Yeah, go for it. Miguel, welcome. Noah, welcome. We're getting through our sports chat here. We're going to open some product in a little bit and do some giveaways. But welcome, everybody, to episode 11 of SSH Live. Normally, we would be doing this a little bit later. But I'm about to talk about the Steelers-Ravens coming up. Normally, we go live at 6 o'clock Pacific. But because the original plan, well, I won't even say with the original plan, the third rescheduling, or the second rescheduling of the Steelers game was supposed to be tonight at 5 o'clock. I go live at 6 on it, and I'm not going to miss a damn Steelers game. As you can see, that's like prayer time for me, if you want to put it that way. And then once they changed the game to tomorrow night, I'd already announced that we were going to do the time today. So I wasn't going to screw around with it. And it looks like next week I might actually have to do the same time, because next week's schedule, and I'll get into this shortly, the Ravens-Cowboys game got pushed to Tuesday. So I might do this again next week at 3 o'clock just because of this. But and next week I'll have all my stuff back, so I can have all my graphics, and I can have my computer, and I can have... I got something flying right there. Oh, it was just a buzz. But I'll have all my stuff back, so I'll be back to some entertaining shows and some graphics and stuff, and we'll be adding more and more to it as we go, because I bought some upgrades, so it'll be fun. And we got some good products coming out the next couple weeks as well. Switching over to the Steelers-Ravens game, obviously it was pushed back, was originally scheduled for Thursday, Thanksgiving, it's supposed to be the Thursday night game. Ravens decided that instead of playing the Steelers, they wanted to try to have the game pushed back. I don't know. I don't know what ended up all happening. I'm assuming there's going to be an NFL investigation. John Harbaugh will cry his way out of it anyways. And I say all that tongue in cheek. I do have a lot of respect for the Baltimore Ravens, but they're my divisional rival. I like to take jabs at them here and there. But game got pushed back because they had like 9 players test positive in 3 days, and so contact tracing and so they pushed the game back to Sunday. Okay. Week continues. More players. More positives. Okay. Crap. Now what are we going to do? So, Tuesday. Okay. Sunday rolls by. Or rolls in, I should say. More positives for the Ravens. Which, by the way, I think last count I saw they were at 19 players and like 8 or 9 staff members. Okay, so game's not going to happen Tuesday. We're in jeopardy of it being canceled. Last option, Wednesday. Okay, sucks, but it is what it is. So the game gets moved to 3 o'clock tomorrow, Wednesday. 3 o'clock Eastern time, by the way. And NBC comes out and says, yeah, it has to be because we have the tree lighting ceremony at Rockefeller Center on Wednesday. And last year we had 6.5 million viewers for that. So your little football game, tough. Okay. NBC rules, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so here we sit on my live stream a couple hours early because I wasn't going to change it again because I'm not the NFL. And, yeah. So, the other moves that are now going to happen with this, because obviously both the Steelers and the Ravens are on a short week. The Ravens were originally supposed to play the Cowboys on Thursday night. So that would have been, had they kept the schedules, would have been Wednesday night, Steelers, Ravens, Thursday night, Ravens, Cowboys. Not going to happen. So the Ravens-Cowboys game gets pushed back to next week, Tuesday. So that's why, again, next week I think I'll probably end up doing the 3 o'clock show again, just because of that. Because I do love to watch football. It's not just my Steelers that I love to watch. And when Steelers are on, I shut everything else pretty much down. But I do go watch the replays of the games that are going on at the time. Because I like to actually get a feel for it. I'm not just a stat cruncher. I like to actually see what happened, what led to certain things. But then also we had the Steelers and Washington game that was supposed to be Sunday. That's now getting moved back to Monday, as well as kind of a be fair to the Steelers as well for screwing them the entire time, because they did nothing. They had one positive test during all this, and that was James Conner. And I wish him all the best, and I hope that he comes back healthy because he's high risk. That son of a bitch recovered from cancer a few years ago. So I'm more concerned about James Conner than I am the entire Ravens team, because I don't recall anybody saying anything about any Ravens being high risk for anything. James Conner had leukemia, so I think it was leukemia. But anyway, could be bad. So definitely thoughts and prayers out to James Conner and his family. Hopefully he recovers fully from that. But yeah, so Wednesday's game, no Lamar Jackson. He's out. He's not eligible to play regardless, because even if he tests negative today and tomorrow, he has to have 5 straight days of negative tests. And he tested positive on Saturday? So 5 days is not enough time. So he's out. So it looks like RG3 is going to start, unless all of a sudden RG3 comes up negative or comes up positive today or tomorrow. They are going to get J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram back, because they were some of the earlier tests, and they're going to, apparently they've now cleared, so they're going to play, from what I understand. So, yeah, they're going to get a couple of their guys back, but they're still going to have like 11 or 12 guys or 13 guys, because 3 more went on COVID IR yesterday. Matthew Judon was one of them. So I just there's not enough info being shared as to what actually happened and what took place for me to sit here and piss and moan and whine about how the NFL handled this. Because that's not what I don't like to jump to conclusions. Does it appear they handled it poorly? Sure. Yeah. Can I say that for sure? No, because I don't know. There hasn't been enough, and with the way this was just widespread throughout the locker room, to me it appears the NFL was trying to get control of it before moving forward with the game because they kept having more test positive. Now my concern is how many of these were false positives, because if you have J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram that are coming back to play in tomorrow's game, well, they tested positive on Wednesday of last week. COVID's not done in 2 days. You don't beat it in 2 days. So how many of this, how many of this were false positives? Was this an unnecessary scare? Was there something that the Ravens did that they should be getting, who knows? And more info could come out later on. I don't know. We'll see. But to recap some of the previous stuff, the last matchup we saw between the Ravens and the Steelers was Week 8, and the Ravens pretty much ran all over the Steelers in that game, 300 plus rushing yards. But the Steelers came away with the victory, obviously 28-24, which en route to their 10-win, 0-loss season so far. I don't necessarily want to say that the Steelers are going to walk away with this game because it's the Ravens. They're going to play them tough. That's the way the AFC North works. The only people that I never worry about playing are the Cleveland Browns. Let's be honest. But the Ravens play tough. They do. They're a team that they're a franchise built a lot like the Steelers. If you're a Steelers fan, you got to hate but respect the Ravens because they're a smash mouth, well-run football team. Do I like John Harbaugh? Is he a whiny bitch? Yeah. But that's, again, only because of the Steelers. If I wasn't a Steelers fan, I probably wouldn't give two craps about John Harbaugh or have any kind of thoughts on the type of coach he is. But anyway, I do think the Steelers are going to win. RG3 is still a functional quarterback. He's capable. Built a lot like Lamar Jackson's playing style. So I could see it being a fairly good game. I got to go through and actually look at how many starters are not going to be playing because the defense is really the only thing that's going to stop the Steelers. I don't see... I don't see Baltimore scoring a lot of points. Unless RG3 just goes back into 2012 mode. Could happen. But after they ran 300 yards on the Steelers defense is going to prepare for that. Yeah. It's going to be ugly. Personally, I think it's going to. There's going to be some chippiness. There's going to be some pent-up aggression with the Steelers for being forced to move their game almost a week. There's going to be some hard hits. It's going to be a good game. All right. So, we are going to get into some product rips. I'm going to move some of my stuff around here real quick because, again, I'm limited in my space. I'm limited in my technology right now. So we're going to... Oh, yeah. Thanks, Dave, for mentioning that. Threatened to strike, yes. The players threatened to strike, and the term wildcat strike came out, and Tom Pelissero was on the Pat McAfee show this morning and explained what a wildcat strike is. Because I'd never heard that before, and I don't know how many people had. A wildcat strike is a strike that a group of people that belong to a union go and strike without support from the union. And that's why it's called a wildcat strike, because essentially they're wildcat strikes. Pat McAfee liked the name Maverick strike, but wildcat strike is the term used, which if they do strike, they can have repercussions from the NFLPA even. That's the level that goes. And there could be massive problems between the NFL and the NFLPA if players do strike without support of the PA. And the NFLPA obviously being the Players Association. So thank you for bringing that up, Dave. I almost forgot about that. So we are going to